Chapters 71, 72, and now 73 of Kagurabachi have easily become my top 3 within the series. I literally made this joke in the last video about how chapter 72 was in my top 3 until Hokazono drops again. And well, I was fucking right.
Sometimes you gotta close the door to open a window.
There is this sense of harrowing despair that Hokazono is really driving home with these chapters. Like, it's harrowing. That's the only word I can use to describe this. A couple of chapters ago, I was sort of on the fence about Samura and his actions, looking at it from a perspective of father myself and how I would react to these situations to protect my own daughter. And the truth is, I just couldn't get on board with what Samura was doing with his actions, but I understood them nonetheless. But then going through a reread from chapter 50 upwards, I understood it more and more, and I saw it with more clarity. And I came to the conclusion that Samura is one of the most complex yet hypocritical characters within this series, within Kagurabachi. And if you need to see what I'm talking about, go check out this video right here. But these past 3 chapters have vindicated my thoughts and feelings tenfold, to be honest with you. Seeing this relationship between Samura grow, blossom, and then wither away under the sins of what Samura did is something truly unique within this story. But let's start from the top. The chapter is titled Daybreak and continues the flashback sequence that we have with Samura and Yori, except this time at least 6 months has passed since Yori went back to school and since her mother passed away, and we learn things aren't quite as they seem despite the appearances that Yori might be putting up here, because Yori is battling the pressures of bullying and ridicule, not only at school but also at home also, and Samura is very much aware that there is something wrong. He knows that since Inori passed away, that Iori misses her a lot, but she's trying to play it cool. She's trying to play it off as if she isn't suffering, and we'll get to that in a minute. But there's this unique element at play within this chapter here, and it's in your face, but it's also very, very subtle, and it's Samura's blindness. Now, we have seen this man move through the world as if he had a set of eyes better than mine or yours, so it's easy for us to forget that this man is actually blind. But there are these moments where it's put on display more for us to fully understand within this chapter. For example, when Iori comes home from school, we see both her and Samura arrive to see their home being used as a dumping ground for all sorts of garbage and other people's trash here. And Samura is aware that there is garbage and trash here. You can tell from the smell, but he's not aware of how bad it actually is, obviously due to his blindness. He can't see the graffiti that is on the wall, the same graffiti that Yori remembers from her flashback a few chapters ago. It's the first memory that she remembers. And it's moments like this that makes Samura feel just a little bit more human and a little bit more vulnerable, despite the fact that he quite isn't. He's very well able to take care of himself, but it's up here where the struggle and the real battle is happening for Samura. And at the very same time, humanity within this chapter here, it's something that really shines through, especially in Iori. You see, Iori's strength of character really shines through within this chapter. I mentioned earlier how we see her dealing with incredible levels of bullying at school and at home. However, when Samura inquires about this, we see a very, very different perspective and scenario play out here. Iori tells Samura how loved she is in class, how all the students there were so impressed that she was Seichi Samura's daughter. Quote, "It was non-stop praise," end quote. Samura is understandably very nervous here about his daughter learning about him in school for obvious reasons, and given the conversation, she mentions how once again she's gonna be just like her dad. Once again, Samura's blindness here comes into play as he feels Iori's head and like pats her on the head, and he feels a bump on her head, and he asks where it came from, and she lies, almost instantly telling him she fell, to which Samura knows. Iori ends up confessing that she actually got into a fight. Now, naturally, Samura is in complete and utter shock at this revelation. He doesn't want his daughter fighting, obviously, and Iori tells him the reason. Quote, "One of the kids was like, but he's a killer, right?" Now, this was something Samura himself was afraid of, and Iori reminds her dad that she stood up for herself, and that's exactly the point of training every day. "Mom always said, your dad's a real jerk, but he's a hero who protected this country and our loved ones, and she respected you for that," end quote. Now, the moment Iori mentions Samura's wife here, you see his demeanor completely change, completely different. His face and his expression is completely different. Hearing those words of encouragement from Yori about his wife meant a lot to him, and I think what I really love about this chapter is Yori and Samura are both so similar. It's actually insane. They're both going out of their ways to protect each other, even at the risk of losing themselves in the process along the way of doing this. This torment that Yori is going through at the hands of her peers, and even her teacher, by the way, fuck that guy. She purposefully is not telling Samura for one very vital reason. Quote, "My dad's a hero, and I'm his daughter. If I can be strong, If I can just hang in there, I won't lose another person I love. End quote. Now, if you heard those words and they didn't quite sink in, let me remind you that Yori is around 10 years of age thinking this. No 10-year-old on this planet should ever have to put themselves in a position of shouldering this kind of burden. Shouldering a burden so heavy she cries herself to sleep at night and is losing hair from the stress of simply trying to soldier forward and be strong for her dad. Soldiering forward with the belief that if dad thinks I'm suffering because we're together, he might go far away from me again. Just those few lines right here provides so much insight into Yori, into Samura, into her mind, into how it ticks, and into how her life has been from Samura so far. And she believes that hiding her suffering will keep her dad around. But little does she know that her hiding that suffering is causing her to suffer even more. It's a double-edged sword. But as I mentioned before, with Yori, Samura, they're both so similar, it's insane, and they both try in ways to protect each other. But in this cruel twist of fate here, Samura's first misguided attempt and misguided way of trying to protect Yori by leaving so she wouldn't be associated with him has now left Yori with the misguided view that if she's suffering, Samura will leave again. But the thing is, Samura isn't stupid. Despite being blind, he's quite clearly able to see his daughter is suffering. After a little flashback to Yori telling Samura about her fight, that was just the tip of the iceberg. Ever since she lost her mother, for the past 6 months, Yori's been battling all this alone, and it's all because of me. And we see Samura standing on the other side of Yori's room, listening to her cry herself asleep, when suddenly the worst thought crosses Samura's mind. A thought that, if I'm honest with you, I can't even personally bring myself to comprehend within my head. I've talked about this, mentioned it many times in the past, but this dynamic that is going on between Samura and Yori is something that I'm able to put myself in the shoes of. Reading this, had I read this 5 years ago, not being a dad, I probably wouldn't have hit the same. But reading it now and being a father and seeing this, it hits a lot different. And it's something that I'm able to sort of see myself in. Being a father to my baby girl it's almost unfathomable to me to imagine something like this in this scenario, something this horrific. Seeing your own daughter pushed to the brink, to the point where even your own father is worried of the absolute worst possible outcome here, that you might do something stupid. That thought, to me, that's incomprehensible. Now, I've got to take my hat off to Hokazono, because he truly is taking some really human horror and putting it right in your face here. And I don't think he could express this in any other way as the way he's doing it right now. But the worst part about this is Samura couldn't even bring himself to open the door to her room and go and comfort her, to go and tell her things will be okay. And it's parts like this in Samura's storyline and his character that frustrate me so fucking much. It's insane. Because if it was me in that scenario and I heard my daughter crying on the side of the door, I'm going in to tell her it's going to be okay. I'm going in to find out what's going on. But I also recognize that's exactly why and how Hokazono is writing the story, because it's frustrating to people like me who see that. Now, seemingly, Samura doesn't make contact with Yori again from this panel onwards. The 6 months we spent together as father and daughter came to an end when I left Yori with her mother's sister. End quote. This is possibly the most harrowing moments of this chapter, is Yori screaming and crying while being left behind by Samura, and then the empty house right afterwards. I think that is easily the most harrowing panels in here, outside of, like, you know, that one. Now, I can't even imagine the betrayal and resentment Yori is feeling at this moment here. Everything that she's gone through in her mind in these past 6 months, the bullying, cleaning the graffiti, lying to her dad, the fighting, cleaning the vandalism and the trash from outside her house, her hair falling out due to the stress, crying herself to sleep, everything. She did all of this in an effort to make sure that her dad didn't leave again, only for him to then leave. So for her, she's done all of this, she's put this brave front on, and it was all for nothing. It was all for nothing. And from what we can see, it doesn't even seem like there was some sort of explanation. It looks like Samura just kind of snapped and was like, I can't do this no more. Now, I think it's also important to notice that while it's only been 3 chapters worth of content here, and it's been a while since we've been in the present and saw the rooftop, all of this information is flowing through Yori's mind in real time on the rooftop right now. It is still all happening right now. As we're going, she is intaking all of this information as she's cutting people down. Now, speaking of information, there is a very particular scene here involving Yora and Mr. Hat Hishaku that I haven't spoken about yet, and I do want to mention, but I need to do a little bit of reading up on this subject myself because I'm not too nuanced or not too educated on the series, on the subject here. An encounter Samura has with two locals prompts them to reveal that they know the truth. They don't like him, and everyone in the town also doesn't like him, and Samura realizes that Yora's been up to no good here. In fact, Yora has actually been dropping off leaflets around the city with misinformation within them, mixed in with some truths out there. Quote, not enough to persuade any intelligent person, but they did fuel the mistrust of the heroes, end quote. Now, this is all in an effort for Yora to push the rising tension against the so-called heroes even further here. He's trying to play a crazy agenda. Now, this is obviously for trying to get Samura on board here. Now, I don't know enough about the topic at hand, but Hokazono is tackling subjects here that somewhat reflect both modern day events and obviously past events that have happened within Japan. And I think it's interesting seeing the real finer details that happen within a wartime setting and everything that goes along with that, all of the misuse of information. We see it every day, all the time. Just go to Twitter. It's a cesspool of misinformation. And it's interesting seeing Hokazono tackling that kind of subject in the manga right here. But regardless, this chapter comes to a close with Samura now having left Yori, visiting Shiba and telling him to protect Rokihira at all costs for the sake of the future. That future being Chihiro. Now, in case you haven't clocked it yet, there is a major theme of kids reaping the mistakes of their elders, their fathers, their mothers, within the world of Kagurabachi here. And it's kind of just this overarching story of these kids trying to right previous wrongs, trying not to bear the sins of their fathers and mothers going forward. But right after Samura tells Shiba to protect Rokihira, we cut to the final page of him on the phone learning the news about Konoshige as we see Chihiro sitting by his father's side as he died. Now, the impact that this final page had was no text was... I think that's what made it so great for me personally. Sometimes in life, words can't describe the emotions that are going on and the events that are going on. So standing there and just letting time pass is the only way to process these events. And I think that is what Hokazono was trying to capture within this moment, within the story, within these pages of this chapter. Overall, once again, 10 out of 10 chapter. I am on some dick riding shit right now. But Hokazono, it's good to be back. Holy fuck. And it's good to see what he's doing here. And as always, I'm fucking excited to see where this all goes. Genuinely. Anyways, that is everything from me. I will catch you guys all in the next one. Massive shout out to all the members on the channel. Here is also a little peek of some videos I have coming up next. So please look forward to them. Go follow all the socials, all linked in the description. And I'll catch you guys all in the next one. Much fucking love. Big fucking kisses. Peace.